Welcome back to Chase Circle, where every story takes you a little adventure. Today, I'm going to share with you a story that's full of surprise and maybe even a lesson or two. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into this journey together.
Take your daughter and get out. Right now. My father-in-law didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The way he said it like he was reading a rule off a sign made my stomach drop. I had Sarah's backpack in one hand and my work tote in the other. My keys were still between my fingers. I'd walked in thinking I was late for dinner. Instead, Daniel stood behind his parents like he belonged to them more than he belonged to me. "Jenny," my mother-in-law said, arms folded, "you can't stay here tonight." I looked at Sarah. She was 9. She pressed her lips together the way she did when she was trying not to cry in front of adults. Her face was pale under the kitchen light. "Can we talk in the morning?" I asked. I kept my voice low because Sarah was right there. "She has school." Daniel finally stepped forward, but not toward me. Toward the door. He reached past me and turned the deadbolt. Click. He wasn't locking us in. He was locking us out. "Don't make this dramatic," he said. "This is what's best for everyone." "What's best?" I repeated, because my brain was behind my mouth. "You're throwing your daughter out." "She'll be fine," my father-in-law said, like he was talking about a plant that could survive a cold night. "You'll find somewhere." Sarah's fingers tightened around my sleeve. "Mom?" I tried to look calm for her. My eyes burned. "It's okay," I lied. Then the front door opened again. A woman I'd never seen before walked in like she already had a key. She was younger than me, wearing a blazer that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She carried a gift bag with a bottle of something expensive sticking out. Daniel cleared his throat like he was about to introduce a speaker at a conference. "This is Olivia," he said. "She's our new CFO." My mother-in-law's face changed in 1 second. Warm, proud, almost relieved. "Oh, sweetheart, come in. Sit. You must be exhausted." My father-in-law nodded at Olivia, the way he nodded at men he respected. "Nice to finally meet you." I stood there, holding my child, trying to understand why a stranger was being welcomed into the kitchen while I was being pushed out of my own marriage. Olivia looked at me once. Just once. Not cruel, not sorry, just measuring. Daniel didn't look at Sarah at all. "I'm filing for divorce," he said. "I need a partner who can keep up. Someone who can help me grow." Sarah's breath hitched. I felt it against my side. "Daniel," I said, still quiet. "She's 9. You can't do this in front of her." He shrugged. "She needs to learn how life works." That was the moment I understood something I didn't want to understand. They were willing to let my child lose everything. Her home, her stability, her dignity. And they were calling it family. If you've ever been told to swallow your pain because you're strong, you'll understand this hit like so this reaches the right people. CTA has honed. I walked out without begging, not because I was brave, because I knew begging would be used later as proof that I was weak. Outside, the air was sharp. Sarah's sneakers slipped on the front steps. I steadied her with my elbow because my hands were full of our life in 2 bags. Behind us, my mother-in-law called out, "Jenny, don't poison Sarah against us. We're doing this for her future." "For her future," I turned. "Her future needs a bed tonight." Daniel didn't answer. He didn't have to. The door shut. The lock turned. And the house, his parents' house, the one I had cleaned every day, became something I wasn't allowed to touch. We sat in my car in the driveway, headlights off. Sarah stared straight ahead. "Mom," she whispered, "did I do something wrong?" "No," I said. The word came out too fast, too sharp. "No, baby, you didn't." She nodded like she understood, but she didn't. She was 9. She shouldn't have to. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "I'm transferring Sarah's school to a better district. Don't fight me. It's for her." My chest went cold. Sarah's school wasn't just a school. It was her friends, her counselor, the teacher who knew she got anxious when adults yelled. It was her safe place. I typed back with shaking thumbs. You can't do that without me. He replied, Watch me. And in that moment, I realized the night wasn't just about me being thrown out. It was about my daughter being taken, piece by piece, under the excuse of what's best. I drove to the closest gas station because it was bright and open. I parked under the lights and bought Sarah a banana and a small milk with the last cash in my wallet. She ate quietly, eyes fixed on the windshield. I called my mother. She picked up and I didn't waste time. Daniel made us leave, I said. Can we sleep at your place for a few nights? Silence. Then, your father's asleep. And what will people say if you show up in the middle of the night? Mom, Sarah needs a bed. I know, she said, voice tight. But you have to keep the peace. They're still family. Think about Sarah's future. The same phrase again. Like a stamp they could press on any cruelty to make it acceptable. I hung up before my voice broke. Sarah looked at me and didn't ask twice. My phone buzzed. A new message from Daniel with a screenshot. A school transfer request already filled out. At the bottom was my name. And a signature that looked like mine, if you didn't know me well. I stared at it until my throat went numb. Daniel wasn't threatening anymore. He was moving, and he was willing to use my name to do it. If you're still watching, leave a quick comment. I'm still here, so I know you're with me before this next part. CTA #2. By sunrise, Sarah and I were sitting in the waiting area of a 24-hour diner, pretending the sticky vinyl booth was temporary on purpose. I kept my coat on because the heater in my car had died 2 winters ago and my bones were still cold. Sarah drew circles and spilled sugar with her fingertip. Are we going to school? She asked. Yes, I said. Normal day. That was my first rule. Keep her day normal even when mine was falling apart. At 8 sharp, I drove her to her elementary school and walked her inside like I always did. The front office lady smiled at us and I almost cried from how normal that smile was. Then the principal came out. He didn't smile. Miss Parker, he said, using my married name like it still meant something, we received a request to transfer Sarah's records. I didn't sign that, I said immediately. He held up the paper. My fake signature sat at the bottom, neat and confident. They also called, he added. Your husband said you agreed. I could feel every adult in the hallway noticing. Not staring, but noticing, like they could smell instability. Please don't release anything, I said. I'm her mother. I'm the custodial parent. He hesitated. Legally, we need clarity. That's how it starts. Not with a kidnapping in a movie, with paperwork, with people hiding behind policy. I took Sarah to class, kissed her forehead, and walked back to my car like my legs were full of sand. Then I sat behind the steering wheel and called Daniel. He didn't pick up. He texted, Stop making this messy. I'm upgrading her life. Upgrading. Like my daughter was a phone plan. I called his mother next because for years she had insisted she was the real woman of the house. If she cared so much, she would fix this. She answered, cheerful. Oh, Jenny, how are you holding up? Why is Daniel forging my signature? I asked. Her tone sharpened. Don't accuse. He's trying to do the right thing. Your work schedule is unstable. Sarah needs structure. I've taken care of her every day, I said, while you watched TV and criticized my cooking. A pause. Then, don't be disrespectful. We housed you. We fed you. You should be grateful, for being treated like an employee. I'm her mother, I said again, because I didn't know what else to say that mattered. And he's her father, she replied, and we are her grandparents. We're thinking long-term, for the child. The call ended with a click, not a goodbye. At work, my supervisor looked at me like he was deciding whether I was about to become a problem. I asked for my lunch break early and drove straight to a legal aid office. The waiting room was full. A woman with a black eye, a man holding a folder like a life raft, a teenager rocking a baby carrier. I filled out forms with a pen that kept skipping. When they finally called my name, the attorney was kind but tired. She listened. She asked for documents. Marriage certificate. Sarah's birth certificate. Insurance info. Do you have access to your joint accounts? She asked. We don't really have joint, I admitted. Daniel said it was simpler if he handled the money. Her eyes flicked up. Do you have a college fund for Sarah? Yes, I said, and for 1 second I felt proud. I'd been putting aside a little from every paycheck, even when his parents laughed at my $3 and a dream. It wasn't much, but it was hers. The attorney nodded. Check it today. I drove to the bank on my break. The teller pulled up the account. Her expression changed. Ma'am, she said softly, there was a withdrawal last night. My throat closed. How much? All of it. I felt my hands go numb on the counter. That's my daughter's money. The teller lowered her voice. Your husband is listed as an authorized custodian. He withdrew it as a family decision. A family decision. I walked back to my car and sat there until the engine fogged the windows. I wanted to scream. I didn't. I couldn't. Sarah needed me stable. When I picked her up after school, she bounced out with a paper crown on her head. We learned about pioneers, she said, like nothing in the world had changed. In the back seat, she finally asked, Are Dad and Grandma mad at me? No, I said. They're mad at me. Why? Because I wasn't valuable enough. Because my paycheck didn't impress them. Because I didn't come with a title like Olivia. But I didn't say any of that. Sometimes adults make selfish choices, I said instead. That night, we slept in my car in the diner parking lot. I reclined the seat as far as I could. I wrapped my coat around Sarah like a blanket. At 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed with an email notification. Subject, Notice of Health Coverage Termination. Daniel had canceled Sarah's insurance. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Sarah had asthma. Not severe, but real. Her inhaler was in my purse. Refills weren't cheap. He wasn't just stripping away comfort. He was stripping away safety. If you're hearing this and your stomach is turning, tell me in the comments what would you do first? Fight for the school or fight for the insurance? CTA #3. I didn't have a printer at home anymore. Home wasn't mine, so I went back into the diner and asked the night manager if I could use their office copier. He looked me up and down, saw Sarah asleep in the passenger seat, and didn't ask questions. He just nodded and handed me a key. Each page that slid out felt like proof that I wasn't crazy, that what they were doing wasn't normal marriage problems. It was a plan. When I returned the key, the manager said quietly, Ma'am, don't let anyone tell you you're overreacting. I wanted to hug a stranger. I didn't. I just said, thank you. I stared at that email until my eyes watered. Then I did the only thing I could. I opened my laptop on my knees in the dark car and started printing every message, every screenshot, every form. Because the next day, Daniel didn't just come for Sarah's records. He filed something worse. A week later, I sat in a courtroom that smelled like old carpet and burnt coffee, listening to Daniel's lawyer say my name like it was a mistake. Daniel didn't come alone. His parents sat behind him in the second row, dressed like it was church. My mother-in-law held a folder to her chest like she was the victim. My father-in-law nodded at the judge as if they shared a golf membership. Daniel's lawyer spoke smoothly. Mr. Parker is requesting temporary primary custody due to Mrs. Parker's unstable housing and unpredictable work schedule for the child's well-being. For the child. I looked at Daniel. He kept his eyes on the table, not on me. Not on the picture of Sarah I had tucked inside my file. The judge asked me questions. Where were we sleeping? Did I have family support? Could I provide medical insurance? I answered honestly. I didn't have a house. I was working 2 jobs now, and the insurance had been canceled without my consent. Daniel's lawyer pounced. So you admit the child is uninsured? She was insured, I said, still calm. Until Daniel terminated it at 2:13 a.m. on a Tuesday. The judge's eyes narrowed. That timestamp mattered more than my tears ever could. It was a detail that didn't fit the story Daniel was selling. Wrong detail. That's what I started noticing everywhere. Little things that didn't match their "we're just worried about Sarah" mask. The judge ordered temporary joint custody with Sarah staying with me and Daniel getting weekends. It wasn't a victory. It was a pause. Outside the courthouse, my mother-in-law grabbed my arm like we were friends. "Jenny, stop fighting," she hissed. "You're making Sarah suffer. Do this the easy way." "The easy way for who?" I asked. "For the family," she snapped. "For all of us. If you don't want to miss what happened next because it gets worse before it gets fair, subscribe." I hate asking, but this story is the reason some people need to hear it. CTA #4. I found a tiny basement studio through a coworker's cousin. 1 room, a bathroom with a fan that didn't work, a window that looked at someone else's foundation, but it had a lock that belonged to me. I worked my regular accounting job during the day. At night, I did data entry for a medical billing company. Weekends, I wiped tables at a coffee shop. I kept receipts in a shoebox and asthma inhalers in my purse like they were gold. Sarah adjusted faster than I did. Kids do that. They don't have a choice. But there were cracks. Daniel started bringing her back late on Sundays, always with a new gift from his parents, a pink dress with tags still on it, a tablet for school, a lunchbox with her name printed in glitter. Every gift came with a message I could hear even when Sarah couldn't. We can provide what you can't. One Sunday, Sarah came home quiet. Too quiet. She went straight to the bathroom and closed the door. I heard the sink run for a long time. When she finally came out, her eyes were red. "Baby," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Did something happen at Dad's?" She shrugged. "Grandma said I should live there because it's a real house." My jaw tightened. "What did you say?" "I didn't say anything," she whispered. "Because she said if I make Dad sad, it means I don't love family." There it was, the guilt, the obligation, the trap. That night, after Sarah fell asleep, I checked the tablet they'd given her. I wasn't snooping for gossip. I was checking settings, making sure it was safe. A notification popped up. School District Enrollment Portal. I clicked. The account was logged in under my name, and the email attached wasn't mine. It was Daniel's. He had created a parent portal pretending to be me. Again. I scrolled through the submissions. Not just a transfer request. Multiple updates. Emergency contact changes. Medical release forms. One form stopped me cold. Permission to administer medication. Under parent signature, my fake signature again. And under medication, it listed an inhaler brand Sarah had never used. Sarah could have been given the wrong dose, the wrong medication, at school, without me knowing. My hands shook so hard I had to set the tablet down. This wasn't just control. It was risk. Real risk. To my child's body. I drove to the legal aid office the next morning and begged for an appointment. The attorney looked at the screenshots and her face went still. "This is impersonation," she said. "And if he's forging medical documents, that's serious." "Can we stop him?" I asked. "We can try," she said. "But we need more." So I started collecting more. I saved every voicemail where his mother said, "Don't make us look bad." Every text where Daniel wrote, "Be reasonable for Sarah." Every receipt that proved I paid for her inhalers after he canceled insurance. And then, by accident, I found the first real crack in their perfect story. A letter arrived in my mailbox addressed to Sarah. Not from her school, from the IRS. I opened it because she was 9, and it said, "Urgent." It was a notice about a tax filing issue. Someone had claimed Sarah as a dependent, under a different address, with a different primary caregiver listed, Daniel's parents. They were using my child like a deduction, like a reward for loyalty. If that makes your blood boil, hit like, because the only thing that stops this kind of family behavior is people recognizing it for what it is. CTA #5. I took the letter to my attorney. She tapped the page with her pen. "This helps," she said, tells. "It shows a pattern. They're not helping Sarah. They're trying to own her." The next hearing was set for the following month. I went home that night and watched Sarah sleep with her stuffed bunny under her chin. I promised myself I would not let them rewrite her life in their image, but I didn't know their next move was already in motion. Because 2 days later, Sarah's teacher called me, and what she said made my knees go weak. "Miss Parker," Sarah's teacher said, voice careful, "your mother-in-law tried to pick Sarah up today. My hand tightened around my phone. She's not on the list. I know, the teacher said. That's why we didn't release her. But your mother-in-law caused a scene. She said you're unwell, and the family is stepping in. Unwell. That was their new word for me. 2 hours later, a woman from Child Protective Services knocked on my basement door. She wasn't aggressive. She was polite, which somehow made it scarier. We received a report, she said, glancing past me at my small space. Concerns about housing, supervision, and medical care. I let her in because refusing would look like guilt. Sarah sat at the little table coloring, shoulders stiff. The worker asked questions. Where did Sarah sleep? Did she have food? Was she attending school? Did she have access to medication? I answered everything with receipts. Pay stubs. Lease. Pharmacy printouts. The inhaler in my purse. The worker's eyes flicked to my stack of paperwork, and she softened. You seem prepared, she said. I have to be, I replied. Before she left, she said something that stayed in my head for years. The reporting party mentioned the grandparents have a large home and more resources. They said they could provide a better environment. More resources. That was the whole argument, dressed up as concern. After that, the harassment got quieter but sharper. Not shouting, not slamming doors, just constant pressure. Daniel would text. Sarah cried when she left our house. His mother would call and sigh. You're making her choose. My own mother would say, why can't you just compromise? For the family, every conversation ended with the same trap. Endure. Stay small. Don't embarrass anyone. So I stopped talking. I focused on work, on routine, on getting Sarah through each day without teaching her to accept humiliation as love. We moved twice in 3 years. Each time, a little better. A ground floor apartment, a place with 2 bedrooms, a second-hand couch that didn't smell like someone else's life. Sarah grew. She became the kid who did her homework without being told. The kid who watched me pay bills and quietly learned what numbers meant. The kid who asked questions about interest rates while other kids asked for new sneakers. When she was 13, she took apart an old laptop someone at the coffee shop was throwing away and put it back together. It turned on. She shrugged like it was nothing. When she was 15, she built a spreadsheet that tracked my income, expenses, and debt. She slid it across the table to me and said, if we pay this one first, we'll breathe sooner. I wanted to cry. I didn't. I just nodded and said, okay, teach me. Daniel stayed in the picture, but barely. He missed weekends. He blamed work. He blamed traffic. He blamed me. And Olivia? The woman who walked into that kitchen like she owned the air? She lasted 3 years. Not because of love. Because of leverage. I heard it through a mutual acquaintance at my old company. She'd helped Daniel get a loan for a business expansion. She'd introduced him to investors. She'd been the shiny proof that he'd upgraded. Then one day, she was gone. Daniel's expansion turned into debt. His parents' spending didn't slow down. The big house they loved, my father-in-law's pride, became a weight around their necks. Years passed. Sarah went to college on a full scholarship. Full. Tuition, housing, meals. She called me from her dorm and said, Mom, you don't have to worry about this part. I sat on my bed and let myself cry where she couldn't see. She studied technology and finance, like she was building armor out of skills. She worked part-time, then internship, then a small education tech startup that actually listened to her ideas. By the time she graduated, the startup had grown. Investors came in. The company didn't just survive, it blew up. Sarah didn't act like a rich kid. She still clipped coupons with me when she visited. She still checked the locks at night out of habit. But one day, she showed me a bank app on her phone and said, Mom, I'm okay. I'm more than okay. She bought me a bright, clean house with enough space for sunlight. Not for show, for peace. The first time I walked into the kitchen, I realized I could cook without someone judging my worth. I thought the story was over. Then Daniel's mother called me, after 10 years of mostly silence. Her voice was thin. Jenny, We need to talk. It's about the house. I didn't answer right away. I just listened to her breathing, like it hurt. The bank, she said finally. They're taking it. We'll lose everything. We're family. Sarah wouldn't let that happen. Family. The word tasted different in my mouth now. I told her, "You didn't treat Sarah like family when she was 9. She snapped, "Don't be petty. This is about the future. Always the future. Always their future." The next morning, Daniel called Sarah for the first time in months. "I heard you're doing well," he said, skipping hello. "Grandpa's health isn't great. Stress isn't good for him." Sarah put him on speaker. Her face didn't change. Daniel sighed. "No one's proud of how things happened, but we did what we thought was best. For you. If you help now, it shows you're still family." Sarah waited, then asked, "What did you do with my college fund, Dad?" Silence. That was the first time in 10 years I heard Daniel have nothing to say. That night, Sarah came over with takeout and sat across from me at my new table. I told her everything about the call, the foreclosure, the sudden interest in family. She didn't react the way I expected. No anger, no victory smile. She just asked one question. "Do they have a date?" I blinked. "A date?" "For the sale," she said. Calm, businesslike. "When is the auction?" I felt a chill. "Sarah, why?" She looked at me for a long time, then said, "Because I want to handle it the right way." Before I tell you what she decided, tell me in the comments, do you think Sarah should let them lose the house? Or should she step in? CTA #6. Sarah didn't go to Daniel first. She went to the bank downtown, the one with quiet offices and glass walls, plain sweater, hair pulled back. If you didn't know her, you'd think she was applying for a student loan. She asked for the foreclosure packet, the auction terms, and one question that made the banker pause. "Can I buy it without them knowing it's me?" When she told me that, something sharp moved in my chest. Not revenge. Boundaries. Here's the moral knot, and I really want to know where you land. If someone hurt you for family, do they still deserve mercy when they finally need you? Comment honestly. CTA #7. Sarah set up an LLC with a name that meant nothing to them. She hired an attorney who didn't waste emotion. She didn't call Daniel. She didn't negotiate with his parents. She followed the law. On auction day, Sarah sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, coffee untouched, and placed her bid like it was any other transaction. When the confirmation email arrived, she exhaled once, like she'd been holding her breath for 10 years. "It's done," she said. A week later, Daniel's parents got the notice. The house was sold, 30 days to vacate. They called Sarah first. "What the hell is this?" Daniel snapped. "Some company bought the house." Sarah's voice stayed flat. "Yes." "Who?" he demanded. "A legal owner," she said. My mother-in-law jumped in, panicked. "Sweetheart, we raised you. We loved you." Sarah didn't argue. She didn't list the diner parking lot or the asthma refills. She said one sentence. "You locked me out when I was 9. My father-in-law took the phone. This is unnecessary. We're family. Be reasonable." Sarah paused. Family is supposed to protect, not remove a child's home, because her mother isn't profitable. Daniel tried again, softer. "So you're punishing us?" "No," Sarah said. "I'm making sure you can't do it to anyone else." The handover was scheduled 2 days later. Sarah asked me to come. "I need you there," she said. "Not to fight, just to stand." Driving to that street, my stomach remembered everything. Sarah sat beside me, calm, like she'd already decided what her peace looked like. The house was the same shape, but smaller somehow. Paint peeling, yard uneven. The fortress that once trapped me now looked like a normal building with an ugly history. A lawyer's car was there. So was a moving truck. Daniel stood on the porch, eyes darting like he could find a loophole in the air. When Sarah stepped out, he froze. My mother-in-law rushed down the steps, hands out like she could pull Sarah back into obedience. "Please, don't do this. Think about the family." Sarah didn't move. She held her ground. The attorney read the documents. My father-in-law insisted there had to be a mistake. There isn't, the attorney said. The sale is complete, the attorney asked. Is the purchaser present to confirm receipt? Sarah lifted her chin. I am. Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. My mother-in-law's face drained of color like someone pulled a plug. My father-in-law laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. No, that's not. It is, Sarah said. She didn't raise her voice. The house is in my name through my company. The deed is recorded. Daniel took a step down, palms out. Sarah, you don't understand. We're trying to keep the family together. Sarah's eyes didn't flicker. You tried to keep the family together by removing me and my mom. My mother-in-law's hands started shaking. Honey, we were scared. You were living in a car. Because you put us there, Sarah replied. That sentence landed like a weight. Even the attorney stopped flipping pages for a second. Daniel's tone turned pleading. Olivia ruined us. She pushed me into that loan. I was trying to build something for you. Sarah's expression didn't change, but I saw the muscle in her jaw tighten. Dad, you took my college fund the night you kicked us out. That wasn't building. That was stealing. My father-in-law looked at me then, like he wanted me to fix it the way I used to fix dinner, laundry, everything. Jenny, tell her to stop. I didn't move. I stopped taking orders from you a long time ago. The attorney cleared his throat, professional again. Per the notice, you have until the date stated to vacate. Failure to do so will result in a formal eviction process. My mother-in-law's voice cracked. Eviction? You'd evict us? Sarah answered without cruelty. You evicted a 9-year-old. They started talking over each other, then fear, shame, anger, all mixed together. My mother-in-law kept saying, but we're family, like it was a password that should open any door. Sarah kept repeating one line, calm every time. Family is protection, not leverage. And for the first time, no one could talk over her. Daniel looked at me, and for a second he seemed ashamed, until he reached for the old move. Jenny, he said, you're really going to let her do this? My voice stayed even. I'm not letting her. I'm respecting her. Because that was the difference. I had been trained to endure. Sarah had been trained by them to document. When the papers were signed, the attorney handed Sarah the keys. Not ceremonially, just factually. Sarah looked at Daniel's parents. You have until the date stated. If you need resources, my office can send you a list of rentals. My mother-in-law blinked. Your office? Sarah's tone didn't change. I'm not being cruel. I'm being clear. My father-in-law's pride cracked. After everything we did, Sarah cut him off, calm and clean. You don't get credit for what you did to me, and you don't get to call harm love because you used the word family. Daniel swallowed. Sarah, please. She looked at him like someone who had once held her hand, and then let go. Dad, she said, you chose money over your child. This is your consequence. Nobody screamed. Nobody threw anything. Just the law, doing what feelings never did. We walked back to our car. My legs felt light, like I'd finally put down something heavy. Sarah buckled her seatbelt and stared forward, the way she did at 9, only now her shoulders were relaxed. Mom, she said softly, I'm not doing this because I hate them. I know, I whispered. I'm doing it because I love us more, she said. I took her hand. She squeezed back. Justice didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like finally being allowed to breathe.